Hello everyone, and welcome back to the 5th build diary for the Cold Snap of Power Occultist. In the last video, the Private League finally came to an end, and it was time to migrate over to Trade League. Now Trade League of course unlocks some insane upgrades for every build, as you just have access to a lot more items. And after selling some valuable items that I'd picked up over the course of the Private League, things like some divination cards, a few scarabs that I had, it was time to finally buy some upgrades. Over the next week or so, I spent a lot of time trying out different items and upgrades until I settled for something that I thought worked well enough. The build went through some major revisions during this time, so let's go over all the changes. Now the very first item on my shopping list was an Awakened Spell Cascade, as Awakened Spell Cascade has some very funny interactions with Cold Snap of Power. If you manage to get enough AoE, 4.8 meter radius to be exact, you will get to the point where you can start overlapping all of your Cold Snaps of Powers from the Awakened Spell Cascade effect, allowing you to effectively hit 5 times with every single cast. However, I won't be going for that, as you need an insane amount of AoE both on your gear, on your passer tree, cluster jewels, everything else to be able to hit that 4.8 meter radius, and I just don't think I'll be able to hit that anytime effectively. Now, although we won't be hitting the 5 times overlap, I still think it is going to be a big upgrade for the build, as on most bosses, you'll still be able to get 2 to 3 overlaps quite easily, especially on some of the bigger bosses. And also, Awakened Spell Cascade just makes the build feel much more fun to play, and it increases the clear by an insane amount. It is a very fun upgrade to have, and it was one of the things that I was mainly looking forward to in the Private League, but never ended up picking up. Next up was a simple replica Dragonfang's Flight pickup for a nice +3 boost to Cold Snap, along with some resistances and reservation efficiency, as well as a level 2120 Cold Snap of Power, giving us a lot more levels to our gem. You could probably make a better amulet than the Dragonfang's Flight, but honestly for how cheap these are and how good they are, it is an easy buy. Next up was a new pair of boots. I'd wanted to fix Elemental Ailment of Void once and for all, and so it was time to begin some crafting. I began by spamming some Deafening Essences of Loathing on some Fractured Fugitive boots until I hit some decent rolls. I wasn't looking for anything amazing here, just some good energy shield and evasion rolls, either with some resistances or attributes to go along with it. Afterwards, I prayed to Chris Wilson, slammed it with an Exalt, and then it was time for some Eldritch Implicits. If you use the blue orbs, you can get another 15% Elia Void, and if you then combine this with the Deafening Essence that we rolled on the boots, we're now at 50% Elia Void from the boots itself. Then you add in an Ancestral Vision Jewel for another 50% Elia Void, and we are now immune to elemental ailments. With the boots done, it was time for some ring upgrades. I'd bought another Opal ring with cast speed fractures, and started spamming essences again. At this point I was mainly looking to fix my attributes via my rings, along with some extra damage and energy shield, and most importantly, an open prefix for reduced mana cost crafts. I had mentioned in the last few videos that I was contemplating the usage of a vertex to allow us to use a divine blessing. I really didn't want to give up on a good helmet like that though, because a good rare helmet with some Eldritch Implicits would add a lot of survivability to the build. But I also really couldn't shake the idea of just giving up on a divine blessing for damage. So after spending a good bit of time in PoE and tinkering around, I came up with an idea. First up, we needed to make a few more purchases. I picked up an Awakened Blasphemy for some reduced mana cost for the Enfeeble aura we are running, a new Militant Faith with reduced mana cost of skills, and finally, an Unnatural Instinct. It was then time to do a pretty big respec of the passive tree. Instead of going down to the right side, where we were picking up all of our Suppress and Wind Dancer and things like that, I was instead planning on traveling down to the middle near the Scion Jewels. Here, we could make use of our combination of the Unnatural Instinct and a Perondus Pact with Energy Shield. We could also fix our suppression down here, along with most importantly giving us access to the Dreamer nodes for some mana cost reduction. As you can see here, this Perondus Pact jewel is going to give us a lot of energy shield. If we take it out, we lose almost 2000 energy shield. The reason for that is because not only is this Perondus Pact giving us 3% increased energy shield on all of these nodes that we are traveling across, but it is also allocating it to these nodes over here. You then combine this with an Unnatural Instinct, which means that all of the bonuses of unallocated small passives are granted instead. You can get a lot of bonus energy shield here. So you see here, it gives currently 54% increased maximum energy shield, along with another like 50 something over here as well from just the Perondus Pact jewel itself. And you get a lot of extra maximum energy shield. We then also fix some suppression down here as well with reflexes, with Magebane, and of course we go for the Dreamer node here, allowing us to get some reduced mana cost of skills as well, giving us a lot of extra mana. along with some other changes to the passive tree, including the new Militant Faith jewel for the reduced mana cost, as I mentioned earlier, combined with a cluster jewel with disorienting display, getting a crit cluster jewel here for some quick getaway, and especially pressure points, giving us also access to a lot more jewels in general, added a lot of damage to the build. So all of this new tech, along with some reservation jewels in the passive tree as well, allowed us to finally run a Hatred Divine Blessing without actually running into mana problems. Currently, it's still very tight, as I'm still waiting for my Awakened Blasphemy to keep leveling. That will hopefully help a bit with the mana issues as well. I could get another 1 or 2 mana reservation efficiency jewels to make this a bit friendlier as well, but for now it works just about fine. And now that we have access to Hatred, this also allows me to run a Watcher's Eye with damage pen while Hatred. There's a couple of options you go here. I preferred going for a Suppress Grace Watcher's Eye at the very least, considering that would help me cap my suppression. And then also just adding in something like Cold Resist Pen. You could go for the extra cold damage, you could go for cold damage added to spells. There's plenty of options here. You could run a Zealotry instead if that's what you prefer. I just happened to find this one for a pretty good price. I think it was 15 divines, something like that, so it ended up working just fine. And finally, there was one more big upgrade that I wanted to make, and that is the helmet. I'd mentioned before that the helmet that I currently have, the Mind Cage with a lot of resistances, some energy shield, was pretty good, but we can definitely do better than this. Over the next couple of days, I'd kind of spend a few days just trying to corpse craft a good helmet, using fractures, haunted modifiers, things like that, and seeing if we could just get lucky, and lucky we did get. I-86, 2 explicits, both of which are going to be fractured, a whole bunch of Scarcer mods, a whole bunch of extra haunted mods. Let's just hope it fractures a +1 power charge hubris, okay? Send it. Come on.
Of your anguish and aid this soldier, so that you may allow them to be headstrong.
Haunted of Haunting. Oh shit! +1 power charge, 15 AU. That's perfect. Yeah, pretty lucky. So with a new helmet base, it was time to begin crafting. And honestly, I didn't want too much from this, especially at this point. I just wanted to get some good energy shield on the helmet, hopefully some resistances, and go from there. The most important thing that I wanted to get from the helmet was the physical taken as Chaos Eldritch Implicit. Considering we are CI, that just gives us a bunch of physical damage mitigation. From there on, I actually had an open suffix, and to make life a bit easier for myself, I just crafted Suppress spell damage on there, and the helmet was done. For now, however, that is all of the upgrades that I've made to the character so far. There's still a few avenues left for upgrades, and of course, if you feel like throwing hundreds of divines into a build, there is always more ways to upgrade. I personally am still looking into upgrading my chest piece, as this is one of the few pieces that I have not looked at in a long while, and a possible belt upgrade as well. For the chest piece, I'm thinking of going for a Val Regalia with an open prefix and just Hunter Exalt slamming it, hoping for either an additional curse or preferably the physical damage taken as Chaos, as that will give me a bunch more physical damage mitigation, which is probably the thing that the build still really needs right now. Overall though, the build is very comfortable to run, and especially with all of the upgrades that I've made recently, and with all the extra AoE and Awakened Spell Cascade and things like that, it now just demolishes tier 16 straight up. It's very fast, very comfortable to run, and probably one of the most comfortable mappers that I've ran in a long while. I've been running a lot of Ritual to make my currency, selling adorned jewels and other things like that, synthesized bases, whatever I come across really, and that's been kind of fueling most of my money-making endeavors. And honestly, this build just has been very comfortable for that so far. Tier 17s, however, not so much. I don't want to get into it too much, as we've all heard the complaints about tier 17s, and I personally just really don't enjoy running them either. I have avoided running them so far, as most of the ones that I have run in the past have just been miserable experience, costing me 2-3 portals per map, and although I'm playing in softcore, I don't like dying. It usually ends up with me trying to run tier 17s for about half an hour, getting frustrated, and just closing the game and moving on to something else for a while. As for any Uber kills, that is going to be the main goal for next video. Killing an Uber was of course the final goal for this whole build diary experiment, and although I didn't get it done in the private league, I am starting to feel pretty confident in the fact that I will be able to take down at least one Uber. We'll see how that ends up going. That's going to be the goal for next video, as I said, and yeah. You can find the POB in the description below, where you can see all of the upgrades that we've made compared to last time as well, if you're interested in that. And that's going to be it for this video, I'm afraid. I just want to say thank you very much for watching, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until the next one, peace. No one wants this. Oh, people want this, never mind, I take it back. This is 13 divines.